Brand nerds, brand nerds, brand nerds. Oh, you know what it is already. You know what it is. Brands, Beats and Bytes podcast back at you. Larry, this one takes me back. This one takes me back.
Tell us.
Brand nerds, before I started my career in marketing, I had two foundational experiences that I didn't know were connecting me to brand management and marketing. My first job out of undergrad was selling cars at the largest Chevrolet dealership, one of them in the country, called Dexter Chevrolet in Detroit. My job after that, literally following on that, was in retail at a department store long since gone called J.L. Hudson's. J.L. Hudson's. J.L. Hudson's was at one point, I think, acquired by major retailing operation out of Minneapolis that went on to do other things. Why do I mention both of these experiences? Because they were both sales. Both sales. And we describe our marketing craft as a combination of psychology, really getting into the mind of the buyer, and entertainment. I will tell you, brand nerds, retail, and particularly in stores, is one of the hardest jobs you will ever have in your career.
So true.
And I was a department manager. First, I was a trainee, then I was a department manager. The level of stuff that we went through to get someone to buy whatever it was in the store, it was enormous. And that, like, understanding how to sell something, no matter where you were in the corporate labyrinth, if you were in the retail game, you understood what motivated people to buy things. And it was seminal to me to learn that. I would not be on this podcast without that experience. And brand nerds, today we have someone who understands retail, marketing, and selling things across a spectrum of different retailers. Frankly, LT, about our next guest, I don't know how she continued to stay in the game and go from company to company and rise up. Me, I tapped out. I was like, I just can't do this anymore. But she continued to do it. Brand nerds, special day today, because you are going to hear about someone who is a marketer, high-level marketer that knows how to sell shit at retail. Larry, can you tell the peoples who we have in the building today?
What a great setup, D. That's awesome. With DC, we have Shawna Hausman in the house today. Welcome, Shawna.
Nice to see you. Nice to be here.
We're really thrilled to have you, as DC alluded to. And Shawna, now's the time that we have to tell the brand nerds really the full scope of your background. DC did such a great job in the setup. All right. Brand nerds, we are coming to you today with someone who steadily rose through the ranks, first in finance, then as an innovative digital marketer, driving great results and becoming a super successful CMO. Let's walk you through Shawna's fantastic journey, starting with her graduating from Brown University with an undergrad degree in international commerce and Hispanic studies. After graduation, Shawna and friends figure it would be fun to spend the summer in San Francisco before coming back to New York and starting quote-unquote real jobs. But while in San Francisco, a family friend is running real estate for the Gap Corporation, and Shawna obtains a real estate strategy internship. At the end of summer, real jobs in San Francisco seem like a really good idea. I can relate, Shawna. Also, this is the late 90s, and the Gap Corporation is thriving. Shawna seeks a job there in marketing, but at the time, only Old Navy Finance is hiring. Shawna is advised taking a job learning quote-unquote retail math is good for her career long term, and she takes this position. After doing this job for a couple of years and dabbling in some ill-fated startups, yes, this is the late 90s, early 2000s in the Bay Area, Shawna decides to go back to business school at Columbia University, where she earns her MBA in marketing. While at Columbia, Shawna obtains an internship with Bed Bath & Beyond and receives an offer post-graduation where she works as a business planner and buyer. While at Bed Bath & Beyond, Shawna is inserted into the Harmon Health and Beauty division, building a consumer goods store within a store concept for the main Bed Bath & Beyond stores. After 4 successful years at Bed Bath & Beyond, Shawna's boss at Old Navy recruits her to join the new Martin & Osa division of American Eagle. The positioning for this brand is higher end and older. Think than the American Eagle consumer. Think at the time similar to Banana Republic positioning in the Gap Corporation, which they messed up later. We won't get into that now. Shawna starts as a finance manager, and after 2 years, she fully transitions into e-commerce marketing, where she runs the point on the launch of the M&O website. For context, brand nerds, this is going down in 2008, which happens to be the worst economy since the Great Depression. Given this economy, Martin & Osa is shut down. At this point, Shawna then joins retailer West Elm as director of e-commerce, where she runs e-commerce and CRM. Working closely with the tech team, they established West Elm as the tech innovation hub for parent Williams-Sonoma Inc., who has old school catalog roots. D, check this out. West Elm e-commerce becomes the fastest growing business unit within Williams-Sonoma Inc., with a 116% 2-year growth rate. After this great success, Shawna gets a great promotion opportunity to join Giggle as their VP of e-commerce and digital marketing, where she has full control for e-commerce marketing and creative. Giggle offers children's basics with a twist designed to take kids from school time to playtime to bedtime and beyond. At Giggle, Shawna rebuilds and replatforms the Giggle.com website while launching a registry rewards loyalty program and related native app that drives a 16% increase in registry value and a 61% increase in registry purchases. Again, getting those sales that DC alluded to so hard. Brand nerds, as you continue to chalk up wins like Shawna is doing, people take a notice and interesting opportunities come your way. It is 2016, and Shawna is recruited to join Mission Athlete Care as their EVP of e-commerce and digital marketing. Brand nerds, Mission is the cooling towel company co-founded in 2009 by a group of world-class athletes, including Serena Williams, Dwayne Wade, and Drew Brees, who just made the Hall of Fame. Shawna is brought in to build a website and an e-commerce team and supports a new apparel line, and she has full P&L ownership for all direct businesses. In typical Shawna fashion, Shawna and her team drive a 67%, that's right, 67% year-over-year e-commerce growth and a 132% year-over-year Amazon growth. When one is an accomplished marketer like Shawna, you relish challenges. In 2018, Shawna is presented with one of those challenges where she joins Victoria's Secret as VP of e-commerce. After being a cultural phenomenon and plateauing in the early 2000s, when Shawna joins the company in 2018, the Victoria's Secret brand is dealing with many challenges. Shawna is a central part of the team collaborating on the strategic plan to bring more body type and skin color diversity to this heritage lingerie brand, with arguably the most significant cultural impact on body positivity worldwide at the time. But then, brand nerds, Shawna is presented with a great opportunity to become CMO for FSA Store. FSA Store is a digital marketplace that serves 60 plus million consumers with tax-free health and wellness accounts. Responsibilities include managing digital P&L while overseeing performance and brand marketing, e-commerce, site analytics, and creative. An integral part of the work Shawna and team executes is redesigning the brand and replatforming the website. In Shawna's 3-year tenure as CMO, they drive a 300% increase in top-line sales. You heard me right, 300%. Talk about real results. After leaving FSA, Shawna has focused on consulting, and in September of last year, Shawna became founder and CEO of AAA Growth Agency, where they help $50 to $100 million retail and consumer brands assess, align, and accelerate growth. There's your AAA, through hands-on digital and e-commerce leadership. Additionally, since 2018, Shawna serves on the board of advisors for Commerce Next, a community event series and annual conference for e-commerce and marketing executives at direct-to-consumer brands. Brand nerds, you can see why we're really looking forward to this one. Welcome to Brands, Beats, and Bytes, Shawna Hausman.
Thank you. Thank you. Really happy to be here. I'm dizzy when I hearing back at the career and all the moves. I'm dizzy just thinking about it.
Well, when you generate the results you have, Shawna, that's what happens. Really.
It is a really, as you know, the CMO type roles are, it's like a 2-year expiration date, right? You say, I've heard you guys talk about that. And I totally agree. It's like the minute you walk in that door, the clock starts ticking.
Yep. So true.
It has been that way for a long time, Shauna. And I'd like to say to the brand nerds that Larry and I see that changing, as in the time expanding. As we look into the future, we do not. We
Yep.
Right.
think it's going to be shrinking, but that does not mean that marketing is in some way losing its relevance. Is even more important today. It's
Yep.
just more pressure on it because it's such a vital part of an organization. And I like it when Larry does these introductions, watching Shauna, our guest, listen to it. And it's as if they are watching a movie or listening to a narration of something that they didn't do. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And it's something that you did and
Yeah.
that other guests do. And those are your flowers, Shauna. Those are your flowers. Well earned. Well
Well,
earned.
thank you. I really appreciate it.
We are going to go to the Get Comfy section. Brand nerds, as you may have noticed in the introduction, Larry talked about Shauna graduating Brown University and saying, hey, my friends and I think we're going to leave the Northeast and kind of kick it out to the West, upper West Coast in California and San Francisco. So they decided they were going to hang out there for the summer and with every intention of coming back to the East. But she didn't make it back to the East. She got a real job, and the real job was in the world of Gap. Now, brand nerds, when we say the Gap as a retail store today, we're mentioning this in 2026. Some of you all may be thinking, yeah, I know the store. Yeah, it's kind of okay. Yep, good brand, good company. Brand nerds, let me just tell you, when Shauna went there, like the Gap was the
Yeah.
Gap. It was not like amongst those retail stores. It was a juggernaut. Dare I say, the Gap was one of the few brands in this country and the world that could move culture. That's
Yes.
how important the Gap
Mhm.
was. It was not some also ran retail store. I'm not suggesting that's what it is now, but in the pantheon of brands back then, the Gap was something really, really special.
Dee,
So,
and I want to just add one quick thing.
yeah,
Not only was the Gap itself a brand, but the corporation also
great
had
point.
Banana Republic,
Yep.
and then Old Navy was fledgling, which again, in my opinion, ended up being their downfall. But they were a few brands that really
Yes.
resonated.
Great
Yeah.
point, Larry. Great point. And when you have a brand that and a company, thank you for that, Larry, that is at literally the tip of the spirit driving culture, it's hard to get in.
Yeah,
Like you can't just open the doors to anyone. You
right.
got to be selective. And by the way, brand nerds, when you have brands like that, everybody wants to work there.
That's
Like
right.
they're
Mhm.
beating on the doors to work there. So for every one job, there's innumerable candidates. So now, Shauna, you arrive at the Gap. You're going in, intern. It's your first day. And brand nerds, you've heard us say before, we know this phrase, we've heard it before. You only get one chance to make a first impression. So our question to you, Shauna, is can you let us know about your first day as an intern at the vaunted Gap Corporation?
Yes, I remember it literally like it was yesterday. It was it's so memorable a moment in my life. Um, it was a little unique because I had already graduated from college when I did this internship. Most of the people there were going into their senior year, but
Mm,
I kind of wiggled my way in with a connection because I said, we're just going to be out there for the summer, as you mentioned, and I said, yeah, can you get me into this program? I need something to do for the summer. This seems interesting. And, so I show up on the first day and they are kind of shuttling us around, telling us what's where. And they say, all right, we're going to take you into the executive conference room and you're going to meet Mickey Drexler. So, I don't know if everyone listening to this really knows about Mickey Drexler. At the time, he was really the retail god, right?
Give a little background, because I think most, some of us do, but many of us don't. Just give a quick snippet of what Mickey was at the time, because he was a legend. Go ahead.
Yeah. He was someone who really could build up these companies and create brands, and he understood product like no one else. At that time, they ultimately dubbed him the merchant prince. He was the one who really took denim and turned denim into the foundation of your wardrobe. You had Levi's in San Francisco, and they were making great denim for, from forever. And they had a great vision for the denim. But Mickey said, I'm going to do the denim, but I'm going to turn that into an entire wardrobe. That's going to be just the foundation of your look. So, and he really hit on something. He kind of created this look that I would say to this day, I mean, you ask anybody, what are you wearing on a normal day-to-day basis? And they'll say, well, I throw out my jeans and then I pick out a sweater or shirt or whatever. And maybe it's, black denim or blue or light or dark or whatever. And you kind of, almost everybody I know, at least, that's what you do. You get up and you pick that, and then you figure out what you're going to put with it. So that all really started with Mickey Drexler. And in addition to being this retail genius, he also was, let's just say, a big, big personality, and he was notorious for this. He was moving fast, and he, really wanted to hear from everyone. He really listened to everybody, wanted everyone's point of view. And he was just like, he was really, he was like moving faster than everybody else. And so he comes like running into this conference room, like, I've got 5 minutes, everybody. All right. And everyone's sitting around this huge board table. And he comes in and he's like, all right. Good to meet everyone. What's going on? What do you think? What do you think of the brand? Tell me something about the brand. What do you think? And everybody's at the table and they're all like, he's like, you could tell the energy is really high. And everyone's sitting there totally silent. And I'm looking around and I was like, so I raised my hand and he says, all right, yeah, what? And I said, I don't think you're doing a very good job marketing to college students.
Oh, coming in hot.
And he says, what do you mean? Why not? And I said, well, and I might have said selling, but I kind of, it all kind of got rolled into one. I said, when I was at Brown, right in the main area where the campus was, there was a Gap store. But because it was kind of a fancier area and people would come as tourists and whatnot, they would take all of the sale product and ship it down to downtown Providence to a different store. Now, at the time, I didn't really understand this kind of store tiering strategy. And this is something that's very common in retail, right? You have, they might be your flagship stores. You have in cities that are really like, they have special products. You've got, mid-level and then lower level where they're mostly going to be sale product. I didn't really understand that as a strategy, but I saw it happening. And I said, college kids don't have the money to shop full price. I said, so you're missing out on all of these kids. I said, and I said, also, you're not really marketing to college age kids, you've got a lot going on and there's big, capital B brand, but it's not really speaking to these college students who don't really have a ton of money to spend and this and that. And I think the whole room was like, oh, I can't believe she said that. And he was like, all right. He's like, I want a report on my desk. I want a proposal on my desk tomorrow. What you would do. I want to know what you suggest. And then he walks out of the room. So I'm like, oh my God.
What did I get myself into?
anxiety levels going up, right? So I go home and I'm like, I gotta write this thing up. So I start thinking about it. Now, my brother, who was also in college, he was younger, had been recruited to work for something called the Student Advantage Card, which was kind of like a discount card before anyone really knew about these kinds of discount cards. And it was something that you could get it as a college student and people would participate. You bring it in, you get 20% off this or whatever, 30% off that. So I wrote up a whole thing about, the whole thing about getting more discount product in the stores near the college students, but also to potentially use this, be a part of this program, the Student Advantage Card. So I wrote this whole thing up and I got some information on it. I put it in a document and I bring it to his office the next day and he reads through it and he says, I don't agree with any of this, but I like that you said something. And I was like, okay. And he says, I'm gonna send you talk to the CMO. I'm gonna call him and set up a meeting for you. And so you can go tell him what you think we should do differently. All right. So he sets up this meeting and I have to go over and I'm in the room. Now, as you were saying, this is the moment of Gap at the height of its influence, the height of its marketing power. And at the time, there were these campaigns running, which are actually not so different from what's running these days, which they called the khakis swing, khakis groove, khakis rock, I think. And they had all these people dancing and it was very, they were doing that kind of filming where, where they kind of do a stop motion, they're like spinning it around, and they have and then they can stop and they would stop on people up in the air doing these jumps and jives. And I mean, it was like winning every award. This campaign was so successful, this TV campaign. So I walk into this guy, Michael McCadden. I swear, if I could reach out to him and say, Michael, I'm really sorry. I walk in as this 22-year-old kid. And he's like, basically, why did Mickey send you to meet with me? And I said, well, he wants me to talk to you about my ideas for college, for marketing to college students. And he's like, oh, yeah. And I proceed to tell him that, at the time, everything was like, I don't know if you can picture this, but everything was in this blue box. There was like Gap was written a certain way and it was in a blue box. They did a whole campaign, like a magazine ad campaign, where they had people like kind of sitting in the box, sitting inside, looking very like chic.
I remember.
Yeah, and it was one person in a box. And I said, college kids, they don't see themselves in this like sad box situation. They don't want to be alone in a box looking sad and depressed. I said, you should have them, doing fun group activities, playing volleyball or throwing a frisbee on the beach or something, that's going to make them feel excited and part of a fun experience. Now, at the time, what I didn't really realize, of course, I was basically describing American Eagle. I mean, that's what American Eagle has taken advantage of. So I'm kind of explaining this whole thing to him. And he basically says to me, something to the effect of, I have the world's...
Shawna, hold on a second. Before you get to, what is it? As you're explaining this, and Michael's looking at you, what are the vibes? So before you get done, question. And he gives, like, what's happening as you're talking to him?
He was just like get out of here. Like I can't, he was just like, I can't even.
Okay.
Why are you here?
I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
He was just sort of like, and he says something like, I am running the most successful award-winning marketing campaign in the country right now, maybe the world.
Yeah.
He's like, I think we're doing okay. Something like this. And I was like, okay. I can't even believe that Mickey sent me in to go tell this guy what I thought about marketing to college students. He didn't appreciate that very much. I think that was kind of Mickey's way. He always liked to hear what the youngest people were saying.
Right.
He would go into a store, and the first thing he would do in a store walkthrough was find the newest employee, the kid that
Wow.
was folding t-shirts over there in the corner, and say, what are we doing right? What could we be doing better? I want to hear it. He didn't want to hear from the senior executives who maybe like were kissing his ass, right? He wanted to know the unfiltered, fresh eyes point of view. So, Michael McCadden was not thrilled with me coming over there and telling him this, but this whole thing definitely got Mickey's attention, because a couple of days later, I'm sitting at my desk. Now, mind you, I have an internship in real estate strategy. That's where they could squeeze me in, because the thing had already been full for months. They're like, well, we'll give you an internship, but you're going to be in San Bruno. And Larry, you know what that is. Like, I'm taking a bus down south every day from the city in real estate strategy. So I'm at my desk and I'm like, and I get a call and I hear someone's like whispering, and it's Mickey's assistant, and she says, Mickey wants to know if you can be at the private jet hangar in 20 minutes. And I said, what? I said, what? She said, he wants to know if you could come on a stores trip. Can you be there in 20 minutes? And so I asked my boss, he's like, yeah, go. Yeah. And I end up on the corporate jet with him and other senior executives. And he's doing it was probably a regional managers conference. He had to make a quick appearance out in Vegas. And the idea was he was going to do that real quick and then do a bunch of stores in the area with the executive team and like looking at what's looking good and not. So I'm like having a nervous breakdown. I think that this was like, I think it took me a year to recover from the anxiety of these first 2 weeks at this job. So I end up on this jet, and he's actually giving, at the same time as we're flying, he's doing an interview with Fortune magazine, which is the article that he was on the cover of in the jeans and the white button down, with the headline of Mickey Drexler, Merchant Prince. And that was the moment that this guy really dubbed him the Merchant Prince, which has carried throughout his whole career. So I'm on this plane and I'm like, oh my God, it is crazy. And, and I'm sitting there, and next to me is this woman who's the head of merchandising for the corporation. So she's like the EVP of merchandising, and she is getting sicker and sicker from the flight. And she's like in and out of the bathroom, like throwing up in the bathroom. And, we get on the ground, and we're in these huge SUV, right? And we're going towards the conference, and he's got to be there at a certain time. And she's like, you got to let me out of this car. So the driver pulls over the side of the highway, and she's like, I got to get out of this car. So she hops out. They're like, we'll send the car back for you. And I'm like, you can't leave her alone on the side of the road. I'm like, I'm going to go with her. You just I don't know what to do, but this woman is like totally sick, and you're going to leave her on the side of this like highway in Vegas, outside of Vegas. So I'm on the side of the road with her, and she's like, she's throwing up, and she keeps turning to me saying, if you ever need anything, just call me. Thank you for staying. If you ever need a job, just call me.
What a story.
This is the most bizarre thing that's ever. And the weird little side note is that this woman that was his assistant, his personal assistant, this woman, Aileen Lee, has gone on to a very successful career in venture capital. And she is the one who coined the phrase unicorns.
Wow.
Really?
She came up with that terminology. She was doing that job out of Harvard Business School. She was his like body person. She was with him at all times. And, so it was considered a special assistant role. And so, yeah, she went on to do a lot. She became very successful in her own right down the road.
What a great story.
And Shawna, was it Aileen?
Yeah, Aileen, Aileen
Okay.
Lee.
Aileen. Now, was Aileen the person who was on the side of the road, or was that the
No,
person that called you and asked if you could be at the hangar in 20 minutes?
she called me. She's the one that called me because she was probably in a room with him
Okay, all
in a
right, got it.
meeting, and she's like, "Can you get there?"
Okay. This, I've never heard a story like this. This is an
Awesome.
incredible story. Larry, do you have any reactions or thoughts? I do have some. But
Please go.
woo! Woo, Shawna. Okay. Did you say 22 at the time?
Yeah, I was
22.
22.
All right. So let's take yourself back to your 22-year-old self. Not now, your 22-year-old self.
Yep,
You get a job as an intern. You're not in school, you're out of school. Everybody else there is in school. Drexler pops up in the meeting, asks, "Hey, talk to me, talk to me. What do you like? What's going on?" Nobody says a peep. You sheepishly raise your hand. They call on you, and you basically say, "You're not doing well in marketing to college students." He
that's
asked
correct.
for a report the next morning. You then do this report. You find your way into the merchant prince's office. And I have to say, probably, I'm going out on a limb here, Larry and Shawna, you were not on his agenda for that next day.
That's right.
There was not a slot that said Shawna Hausman is coming
Right.
to see me at this. Give me a half hour.
Right.
That's correct.
So,
This
so
was
you
a
go in.
drive-by.
Yeah, you go in, you talk to him. He makes the time. He's a busy dude. He makes the time, you talk to him, and he basically says, that idea is crap. The how, but the what and the why, there's something there. You need to go talk to Michael, the CMO. He organizes a meeting with the CMO who has no idea why you're sitting in front of him.
He's like, who is this person?
That's right.
Who is this 22-year-old person who's not even in marketing? Okay.
Who's telling me I suck?
Right.
I was in real estate. Real estate.
I'm working in real estate. You're working in real estate, and you're sent by the president to go tell the marketing head how he needs to do a better job on his marketing.
That's right.
And then, as you are in your real job, trying to get your retail game on, you get a call from the special assistant who asks you if you could be on a plane in 20 minutes to go do store checks. Do I have all that right, Shawna?
That is correct,
Okay.
DC. That is correct.
You also said, Shawna, that Mickey, when he does his store checks, you said they were going to Vegas to do a speech, but he organized going to see stores because he likes to go see stores. And you also said when he goes to see these stores, he looks for the person who's the newest on the job, folding T-shirts in the corner, and goes to ask them.
I love that, by the way.
Yeah.
This is what you said about Mickey. And Mickey's that guy. I want to contrast something here for you, Shawna. One, it took incredible courage for you to do what you did. That's brave. And we say that about the brands Beats and Bytes brand lover. We want them brave. We want them curious. We want them restless in their route to becoming CMOs. That was you at 22. You were the brand Beats and Bytes brand lover. Incredibly brave. Here's the other thing, though. Mickey, the prince, the merchant prince, is that what he is? Or prince of
Merchant prince.
the merchant prince, who is president, who is on the cover of magazines, who is lauded industry-wide for his know-how, ask you, a 22-year-old intern whom he does not know, to come to his office and give him a report, which he listens to. He sends you to the CMO and is impressed so much that he invites you on a trip on a plane with people who are double your age and quadruple your experience level. That's Mickey.
Yep.
Michael,
That's
on the
right.
other hand, was, what the fuck are you doing here? And why should it matter? We're doing fine.
That's right.
Here's the point.
And I don't blame him. I
I don't
honestly
blame him
don't.
either.
I don't either.
But there is a difference. And there's a quote that we love by someone also in the California area, Southern California, UCLA basketball coach, famous, arguably the best basketball coach in history, John Wooden. Have you ever heard this name, John Wooden? UCLA
No.
basketball coach. Larry, can you tell Shawna one of our favorite quotes by Mr. John Wooden?
So John Wooden said this, and he was famous for quotes. And John Wooden said, "It's what you learn after you know it all that counts."
Ah, I like that.
That, Shawna, is Mickey.
Yep.
That is not Michael.
Now to just say one thing here.
Okay.
I don't want anyone to I don't want to paint Mickey as this angelic giving.
No,
Because on the flip side of listening to the youngest person in the room, you have to imagine being a senior executive.
yes.
Oh, yes.
His attitude towards that was mistrustful and
Right.
Very true.
so
Very true.
you know, it cuts both ways, right?
It does. That's fair. Good shout. Good
Yes.
shout. What a story, Larry. I know I took a long time on that one, but just what a story.
It's a great story, and I think it's really interesting when we'll call all of ourselves more seasoned, that your 22-year-old self to speak up is super cool, Shawna, and says a lot about who you are and how you've navigated yourself through your career, because you're not going to be the one who's the wallflower who's sitting in the back and not
Right.
making something happen. And that's clear from all the great work that you've done. Dee, take us to the opening questions, if you would.
Here we go, Shawna. This is called, next section, 5 questions. Larry
Yep.
and I go back and forth with questions to you until we arrive at 5. I'm in the opening position. Take us back to the first branding experience you had. First one, where you just were enthralled with this brand or brand experience. You could not get enough of it. You thought about it. It touched your heart a bit like your first love. What was that brand or brand experience for you?
I think it was Old Navy, actually.
Wow.
You know, even though I was in this Gap sphere, Old Navy was a startup, and it had a lot of heart. It was very scrappy at the time. You know, it was a very interesting branding experience. You know, they were doing 2 different things that were kind of unusual and weird and cool. One was Magic the dog was this mascot of sorts, and the other was the woman Carrie Donovan. I don't know if that name means anything to you, but she was this, I think she was like someone from fashion originally, almost like maybe she was an editor of a fashion magazine. I don't know. She was famous wearing these really big black glasses, and she did all the ads.
Oh, yeah.
And she was very quirky.
Yeah.
And I know she probably had a catchphrase. We'd have to look it up. But it was like, you know, it was very interesting. You'd go into the stores, they were unlike anything else. And, you know, it really had a vibe, as my kids would say.
No doubt.
It had a vibe. And it really did. I felt very immersed in that brand at the time, and I was able to see a brand really kind of coming to be. You know, they didn't have a website at the time. They weren't getting the ad budget, you know, that a Banana Republic or a Gap would get. You know, it was funny. You'd be in the elevator, especially with the Banana Republic people, and they would just look at you like, you know, like you were chopped liver. They were like, oh, because they all would dress to the nines every day, and we would come in wearing like fleeces and you know, Old Navy jeans. But there was really a moment of camaraderie there because we all really had that vision. Everyone in any role there, it was really that startup moment. And it felt like being in a startup. And I think because of that, everyone felt an ownership of the brand in some way. And it really stuck with me for a long time. You know, I don't consider myself really to be an Old Navy shopper these days, but more and more, a lot of people I know are going back to the brand. I think it hasn't really ever gone away. It's kind of gone up and down in its, you know, relevancy, but back then it was very cool. It was a very cool brand.
D, thoughts?
None from me. I like that.
It's very cool. Before we get to the next question, I have some thoughts, and we've talked about this on the show a few years ago, Shawna. And again, this has nothing to do with the folks like you and Old Navy and the people who were stewards of the Old Navy brand, the Gap brand, and Banana Republic brand at the time. I think that, quite honestly, the Fisher family who owned the company and I don't know, I know Mickey left in the early 2000s, but somebody along the line did marketing malfeasance. And what I mean by that is they didn't steward each of these brands to have their own distinct positioning. And
Right.
so what
Yes.
happened is they overlapped, especially Old Navy and the Gap overlapped, and Old Navy was less expensive. The jeans in Old Navy might have been a little bit different than the jeans in the Gap, but they were less expensive. The t-shirts are less expensive than the Old Navy, and they traded people down, in my opinion, from the
Yeah.
Gap to Old Navy, instead of carving out each of them having their own lanes, right? And so that was awful that Old Navy encroached the Gap and took down the Gap. If anything, you'd want to do the opposite because the Gap was a little bit more expensive. And so Old Navy's done a great job, but I think unfortunately they ate their own in doing that, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
that's one of those things that you can't go back in time. But I never understood that at the time. I'm like, Old Navy's great, but they need to carve it out a little different because even the Magic the Dog and Carrie, as you're describing, just very similar to the Gap, you
Right.
know. And anyway, that's just
No,
some
I
thoughts
see
that,
what you're saying. Yeah, I see what you're
yeah,
saying. I mean, I think they could have taken Gap brand higher and
yes,
maybe a little more fashion,
exactly,
or take Old Navy really fashion. You know, you're right.
right.
It did start to kind of converge in the mushy middle, as you say, right? I mean,
And
no
that's
one
the
wants
worst
to be
place
in the
to
mushy
be.
middle.
Very exactly. You don't want to be in the mushy middle. We're going to quote you on that. That's really a good one. All right. So next question, Shauna. Who has had or is having the most influence on your career?
Um, I would have to say, you know, at risk of sounding like an Oscar award acceptance speech, my mom, my mom really set me off on the business path. She was really a businesswoman back when that wasn't the norm. You know,
Mm,
back when I was a kid, my dad is a doctor, and she ran his office, and you know, she was 100% the reason he was successful because she was managed the whole team and the staff
love
and
that.
all the accounting and all the, you know, when they got computers for the first time, she's the one who had to learn it and do that whole thing. And, you know, watching her, you know, and
What are
she
your parents'
worked,
names?
my parents are Jay and Kathy Kaplan.
Are they still with us?
Yes,
Oh, awesome. Shout out to
they are.
Jay and Kathy.
You know, but our life was a little different than everyone I knew. You know, we didn't eat dinner at 5, we ate dinner at 8, you know, and
Hmm.
they came home from work at 6-ish, and my brother and I would come home after school, and you know, we'd be eating junk food and watching TV, but we would get the call, go marinate the pork chops and make the salad and set the table and this and that. And I mean, that's, you know, they say that, right? Gen X, that's how we Gen Xers grew up. Like that's, I think, how
Yep.
we all ended up, you know, being the way this generation is. Um, and that's really where that started. But I watched my mom really running the show and being a business person. And also there were times when she would say, I feel bad that I'm not around more, you know, and I say, well, listen, we enjoy it. We don't mind. You know, my brother and I were very self-sufficient, and you know, that's just, it seemed normal to us. And I think it really did set us off on a good path. for being independent thinkers and, you know, having self-reliance and not worrying what everybody else was doing. We were doing our thing. And, you know, so, and over the years, she's always supported me as I've made various career moves. She's not someone who's like, oh no, you're not going to have a job, you're not going to have money, you're da da da. She's always like, yeah, that sounds interesting. Or, you know, when I'm looking for a job, don't worry, you know, something's going to come. Don't take something you're not going to like. So I really think that having her as this example for me set me off at least on the business path overall.
Love that. Great stuff. Kathy, shout out. D, you want to take us to the next question?
I do. You've had a wonderful career in marketing, in retail, and even when you did your real estate intern, it was still in retail. It was real estate for retail. And you've had quite a number of successes, all these growth rates that Larry talked about in your introduction.
It's actually mind-boggling, the growth rates that Shawna's had.
They really are. And they're consistent. They're consistent.
Yes.
That means that you've had a lot of what we call W's, all right? W's. But this next question has nothing to do with the W's. This has to do with L's, okay?
Yes.
What is your biggest F up, Shawna? On you, not on someone else, not because of a market shifted or something like that. You just made an F up, a big one, and more important than the F up, what you learned from it.
You know, it happens, right? There have been more than one. But one that really sticks with me, that gives me that like feeling when I think back on it. When I was at West Elm, you know, I was over on the e-commerce side, and still at the time, it was really all about stores and catalog, primarily in the company.
That's Williams-Sonoma, just to let people know, because that's that right. They're very, you know, store catalog driven. That's where you're going.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, I was over on the e-commerce side, and I was always looking ahead to what was going to be the next technology that was going to enable shopping and beyond just, hey, here's a website, let's put some stuff on it.
Right.
They started to run a program called home services, I think home services, where they would send personnel, staff, I don't know if they were in the stores or what, but they would come to your house and they would look at your decor and they would talk to you about, you know, this sofa might work in this space, or this rug could be nice, or get a lamp right here, and this is a couple options.
So interior designer consultants almost.
Yeah, design services, I think is what they call it.
Services. Okay. All right.
And you know, so I had that was a moment when apps were becoming a big thing, you know, iPad apps and iPhone apps and all that. And I wanted to have an app kind of like everybody wanted to have an app. And as I started thinking about it, I thought, you know, we could create something that would almost be like a pin board, you know, something you could use to create your mood board, your look, you know, and Pinterest was really hot at that moment in time.
Right.
It's like, this could be like a Pinterest where you're pinning West Elm things together to create a look. And it would be really cool if this app could be on an iPad, and these folks that are going out and doing these design services could have it and be sitting with someone and flipping through, you know, the pictures of the sofa, like which ones do you like? Okay, let's pin it to the mood board, and here's some rugs that would go with it, and you know, pinning them in these pin boards, we were calling it. And even I said, even in the stores, because you're sitting in the store. Right. And you're sitting on a sofa, but you're sitting on it in like beige, but you also could get it in black or tan or whatever. So it could be cool. Like you're sitting on it, it's comfortable. Here are all the options it comes in. So I start working with this company that was starting up doing these apps, and they came in and they basically said, we will design this thing for you for free, because it will be a big win to have a West Elm app out there. They could use that as their calling card, their marketing. so they were doing this thing for free, and we were doing it for a while. Now I was working closely with the CMO of the West Elm division on this project. So she was involved every step of the way. And, the thing was ready to launch. And they said, we need, and they'd always said, we're just going to charge you $40,000 to launch this app. And, in some meeting that I was not in, the CMO went in with the senior, with the CEO and the head of the West Elm division, and they said, "What is this $40,000 for?" And instead of really saying, "This is this app we're about to launch, and we really owe them this money," it was like, "I don't know, it's not necessary." So the thing got cut, and not only was I really disappointed because I was, I felt like it was going to be a great product. And really today, everyone has this, right? Then it wasn't a thing back now. You go into any home goods store and they're going to take the iPad out and they're going to design your whole room, using AI. But I then had to go back to this company that just put all of these hours into building this thing and tell them it wasn't going to launch and then we weren't going to get the $40,000 and there's nothing I could do about it. And, what I didn't do properly was I didn't get all of the buy-in I needed to get. Like in retrospect, you can't really just hide behind, you can't just expect one person to necessarily like totally champion you unless they're really explicit about it. And I should have gotten the head of the division's approval. I was talking to a lot of people who were supporting the project, but none of them had any skin in the game. There was no reason. And I just did not get the buy-in I needed for this thing to go through. I just figured like, well, this is logical. And I have that problem sometimes where I'm like, obviously they're going to want to do this. This makes sense. Not thinking about all the politics out there and budgets that you may not know about, or just, or maybe they're getting pressure from the CEO of the whole company and so you never really totally know all the factors. It was a big F up, and and it became a thing. Like I think that was part of why I left, because it was clear that I wasn't really going to recover from that. It kind of like stained my reputation within the division. And, even people I used to work with for a while would say, you could never say app again at all. And no one ever wanted to hear the word app ever again within the division after that happened. And I kind of took the fall for it and was really mad at myself and felt terrible for this company that, we may have bankrupted them. I don't know. It was horrible.
Ooh, thanks for sharing that, because that's a vulnerability, brand nerds. We all have multitude of F ups, and for Shawna to tell us that is really great. And I think you also said what you learned from it, getting the buy-in. If you don't get full buy-in, and it's always been tricky, DC, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too. It's always been tricky when you have something for free and people hear that. And then all of a sudden, well, this is $40,000. And again, it's the old expectations. And I think in situations like that, it's even more important to explain what's going on so people really understand. Yeah, they're doing all the services for free, but for us to actually consummate it, it's 40 grand. And oh, by the way, I'm making this up, it would have cost $800,000 if they didn't give us the services for free. So anyway, that's just thoughts. Do you want to share anything before we go to the next question?
I'll say this really quickly. Thank you, Larry. And I'll go to the next question. Great answer. One of my former bosses at the Coca-Cola Company, a lauded CMO named Sergio Zeman. One of the things he used to say to us on the brand team is, you have to do marketing for the marketing. And what he meant was internally marketing what it is we wanted to ultimately get out to consumers and customers. This is a case of that. Larry, next question.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So Shawna, when thinking about technology and marketing, With your digital pedigree, man, it's really looking forward to hearing what you have to say here. Can you really help enlighten us for where you think marketers should lean in or best leverage tech, or you can talk to us about areas you think that they should be leery or simply avoid?
Well, I mean, the hot topic right now is obviously AI.
Mhm.
Um, I think I think you have to lean in. I mean, it's going to be scary to a lot of people, but so was e-commerce. You know,
Right.
every step of the way, you know, there's always an anxiety that something's going to do something. You know, even when we started to first personalize messaging to customers, you know, sending personalized emails based on what they had
Right.
clicked on the site seemed like really creepy, right? And showing them things via an algorithm based on where they're clicking on the site, showing them banners or even showing them products that they would like that would be different from the person sitting next to you. You know, people were like, oh, people aren't going to like that. They're going to, you know, unsubscribe. They're going to think it's weird. We shouldn't do that. There was a lot of that at the time. Um, you know, every step of the way, there is that when there is something new that people don't yet understand, there's always a hesitancy, but you can't really stop. You can't really put the brakes on the progress, right? I mean, I think
Yep.
back in the early days when people were launching the websites, the stores divisions were nervous that it was going to eat their lunch. They didn't really want
Yep.
web,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and even at Williams Sonoma when I was there, which wasn't so long ago, they would still refer to the website as essentially just the destination you would go once you received your catalog. You know,
Mm.
we would show our results, and the answer that would come back from the senior executives in the Williams Sonoma, like corporate executives, was, yeah, that's great. It's because we had a really good catalog that month.
Is
And I would say, like,
the bias of people is incredible, isn't it? Like, yeah.
yep. So you
Yeah.
can't, you have to really embrace it. And I think the part that I do think is um, a little bit scary with AI is that it is going to, you know, everyone was saying it's not going to reduce jobs, it's not going to, you know, reduce headcount. You still need somebody that understands. And that is true, but it is going to also reduce headcount. And I think um, as an industry, as a country, we're going to have to figure out what that looks like. You know, and I hate to get doom and gloom, but like, you know, when you see what AI can do, you know, in a fraction of the time. You know,
Yep.
I put together a PowerPoint the other day, or you know, on this app called Gamma, and I literally had like a list of some general notes on something I wanted to present, and I dumped it in, and it put together a presentation that you would have hired, you know, McKinsey to do that thing for 100 grand back in the day. And
Wow.
it just
Wow.
spit out a presentation like you've never seen, like I've never done. Gorgeous. And it took, it was literally like in 3 seconds, it was
Right.
populated and it added in language that actually got to the heart of what I was trying to say. Kind of like DC, right? You can say something, but DC is able to say it again in a way that's even more elegant, more elevated, right?
Yep.
And that's what it does. It was taking what I said and
Mm.
implied, and it created a presentation that added in a language, you know, and you can tell it, like put it in like professional corporate language, or do you want it casual? Do you want whatever?
Yep.
And I was blown away. And you know, that would have been a couple entry level people working on decks, right? Back in
Yep.
the day, you're sitting there working on decks, and that's not going to be a thing anymore. So you can't really avoid the new tech. You have to kind of embrace it, but you have to figure out, next is really to figure out how it's going to be implemented, how people are going to protect their data.
Right.
Because right now I think it's kind of the Wild West. Everyone's just sort of dumping stuff in, even if they say you're not supposed to do that. Everyone at every company is kind of doing it, but they need to have some parameters to protect that company's IP and their customers' data. But there's no slowing it down. I mean, that's what I've learned over the years. You gotta ride the wave, because it's, you can't go backwards. You can't put the genie back in the bottle, right?
We
No.
we We totally agree, wholeheartedly agree. And by the way, like my wife's company, Hub International Insurance, they have their own closed AI. So they have
Yeah.
and so that's what companies are doing. So they keep it, they're keeping it within the house, which is very
That's
smart.
smart. Yeah.
Um, we wholeheartedly agree. Lean in all the way, and if you're a young person, you got to lean in, and so you're the steward of AI. So people lean on you. That's our feeling. Everything you say is true, but we think lean in. DC, you want to hit the last question?
I do. Shawna, what are you most proud of?
Say that again.
What are you most proud of?
Oh, um, that's a good question. I think looking back, I was going to say something about growth and the company I felt like I really was able, everything came together. That would have been FSA Store. I was proud of what I did from a business point of view there. But I actually think when I look back on my career, I'm proud of the fact that I never was afraid to make a move if I thought there was going to be an opportunity that would help me grow. I
Mm.
was never afraid to take on a job I didn't know how to do. I went into a buying position when I was at Bed Bath and Beyond, and I had no experience in buying, but they needed a buyer, and I said, I can go figure this out. I was never afraid to leave a job that when it was time to go without another job, you know, and just get out of a situation that wasn't working for anybody. I think that's something I feel proud of, that I never let fear keep me somewhere or prevent me from learning something new or trying something new or taking a risk to, you know, put it all out on the line and see what happens. So that would be my advice for people, for younger people that are in their careers. Don't stay somewhere where you're miserable just for the money. I know people who do it and they say all the time, I'm going to go, I'm going to look, I'm going to leave, and then they don't, and then all of a sudden you're 50 and you're in a job you've been in forever and you're just doing it for the money, and like, you know it can't that can't guide you, they can't hold you back. You've really got to think about what's going to help you grow and what you enjoy doing and what you're good at. I think if they can, and when they all come together, that's the miracle, right?
Ooh, Shauna, that's so deep what you just said,
Mm.
and you should be incredibly proud of that. And brand nerds, heed that, heed it. It's awesome. D, anything to add before we go to the next section?
Nothing.
This is Shauna. You're dropping some deep stuff. Really, this is
Yes.
great stuff, Shauna. Thank you. All right, so we're gonna go to the next section, Shauna, and that is what's poppin'. What's poppin', D?
What's poppin'?
So, Shauna, this is our chance to shout out, shout down, or simply air something happening in and around marketing today that we think is good fodder for discussion. And Shauna, we have one we think is really good fodder that we think you can speak really well on as well. So, we all know the Birkenstock brand, Shauna, right? Birkenstock.
Yep.
Um, and so, just read something recently at the end of 2025. We are sitting here in first quarter 2026. And the headline for this article is Winning Ugly. Birkenstock keeps its grip on full price demand. So, I'm going to read you a little bit from this article. Americans
Yep.
may be cutting back on some apparel purchases, but there's plenty of room in their closets for Birkenstocks. The German footwear brand reported a 15% jump in fiscal fourth quarter sales to 526 million euros, which is over 607, which is 617 million dollars, topping expectations and reinforcing the strength of a strategy built around disciplined supply, limited discount, and physical retail as a marketing engine. Sales grew double digits across every region, 11% up in the Americas, up 16% in Europe and the Middle East. That's together 16% in the middle, Europe and the Middle East, 33% in Asia Pacific. For the full year, Birkenstock sold more than 38 million pairs, a 12% increase. Net profit surged 79% to 94 million euros, which is $110 million. A key signal of the brand's pricing power, about 90% of sales came from full-price products, even as many of its competitors rely on a steady diet of discounts and promotions. The CEO, Oliver Reichert, said, and I hope I pronounced his name rightly, quote, "We remain committed to maintaining relative scarcity," he said on an earnings call, "the ultimate indicator for brand health. Back to school sales rose 20% across the company's 10 largest retail partners, suggesting the brand's appeal remains strong with younger shoppers, even as trends churn." What do you all think about that as I read that to you?
I want to hear from the retail expert.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, it always comes back to good product, right? You have to have a good product, and they do, and they have for a long time. They don't try and be what they're not. You know, the fact that they say ugly, right? They've never tried to take the brand and apply it to something fancy. I mean, fancy for them is like the buckle gets bigger and then the buckle gets smaller, right, and there's like two straps and then one strap, and they just change it up, I think, to keep people coming back. But they're never really going to change what's core to their brand and their product. They've just been really laser focused. Now, I think that trend has really kind of caught back on since COVID. I'm curious to see their numbers throughout the years, but I think that since COVID, where everyone stopped wearing real shoes, people said, I'm not going to go back, right? I have a closet full of heels. I put them on for 5 minutes and I'm like, nah, I don't think so. You know, and I spend all summer in Birkenstocks, you know, and I've got some that are kind of cuter than others, and I wear them with dresses and I wear them to corporate events. They've somehow, they've made it cool, I think, by not trying to make it cool, you know. I don't know. It's an interesting case study. And now I had them forever. And then my daughter last year was like, I want to get a pair. She's like, everyone's getting them. And the ones she wanted were like the original ones that I had when I was like, 18 years old, in purple.
Right.
True story. They're the oldest style, and she and her friends all wanted them. So now she's wearing them, and it's not because I'm wearing them. I'm not cool. So it's not like she's following in my footsteps, just
that's a hindrance if that was the case.
Let's say that again.
I said that would be a hindrance that you were wearing them. That certainly
absolutely
helping them.
Yes. Absolutely. I like that they don't try. They've stayed true. They don't do a ton of marketing.
Yep.
Right. I mean, I don't even know. I wouldn't be able to visualize a campaign really. And I think I like that about it too. It feels a little exclusive. But when you go into this store, you just want to buy them. They just do a great job. I don't know. It's a really weird brand, right? I mean, but they're like, I don't know. I have to give it to them. But I do think COVID had a big impact on how people were wearing shoes.
That's an interesting take, and I think important context. Dee, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
I hadn't considered this point that you made, Shawna, about COVID. That's really interesting that the context has changed. And because we now, as a society, are given more freedom to dress casually overall, that the saying, all boats rise in a high tide, they are rising because you're not wearing pumps anymore. And I'm not wearing wingtips or hard bottom shoes. That's a very interesting thing. What I'm coming back to is in retail, Neiman Marcus, not now, but back in the day when Neiman Marcus was a thing. They got financial issues now, have had these issues for quite a long time. But back in the day,
it's COVID, by the way.
COVID.
Yeah.
When Neiman's Marcus was, they were at the peak of their powers. I would go there once a year to do shopping during the sales, but they didn't call them sales. They called it last call.
Right.
And
That's
brand
right.
nerds, if you're at a bar
Yeah.
and the last round of drinks, the bartenders announce it's last call.
They ring the
It,
bell.
they ring the
Yeah.
bell. Yeah, it's a giddy feeling. You're like, oh, this is the last opportunity I'm going to get to have that final old fashioned. Mitra's Rye, if you'd like to know, brand nerds, Mitra's Rye, old fashioned, 2 cherries. And
Yep.
the fact that they figure it out, Neiman Marcus, I'm talking about here, a way to position their sales as not a sale, but this is the last call on this wonderful item, scarcity.
Yeah.
And that's my connection to Birkenstocks.
Yeah.
Scarcity. I don't think they want to be the Nike, if you will, of
Right.
of sandals. They don't want to be that. They want to be, I don't know, the Grateful Dead
Yep.
of shoes. They want to be that. They don't want to be everywhere, and I respect that about them. I really do.
Yeah. They've got the
So
heritage too, you know. I
Yeah,
think everyone, younger consumers are really interested in the heritage, right?
yes.
I
So
think that's appealing.
to
Yeah.
be clear, I don't own a pair of Birkenstocks. My wife does and loves them.
Yeah.
But I have such reverence for them. And it goes to what you both are saying. They are unapologetic. They lead in what their brand is and what it is not.
yeah,
Those are
correct.
key points, what it
Yeah.
is and what it is not.
Mm-hmm.
And they're never going to chase trends. They're never going to do that. They're not going to cut prices to gain folks. You know, you're either in, and if you're in, by the
Right.
way, Dee, I love your connection to the Grateful Dead because I think there's a lot of deadheads who are way into Birkenstocks.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's no
It's true.
question that those brands are very much aligned, right?
Yeah.
And so I love the fact that they're unapologetic in who they are and know who they are, and they ain't wavering.
No,
And that's
Right.
why they're not going to cut prices, and that's not why they're not going to chase the most trendy thing. And part of knowing who they are is, I think this is where you were going, Shawna, is they're so comfortable. That's what people say about them. They're so comfortable. That's the product side that then leans in. And Shawna, we will say, we'll take great brand with good product over the opposite. So in my opinion, they have both. They have a great product and a great brand, and they're unapologetic in both, and both product and brand are completely aligned, right? And that rarely happens with a consumer brand over time. And so that's why we thought this was great. What's popping, especially for you, Shawna, with your retail background. We had no idea, brand nerds, by the way, that Shawna and her daughter were even consumers of.
Oh, I mean,
Birkenstock.
that's all I wear. I know.
You know, but that's the point of a strong brand. So great conversation. Great conversation. All right. I think that was awesome. Shawna, this is such an amazing, you've been amazing. We're now in the last segment. That's what happens when we have great conversations with awesome guests like yourself. So we're going to share our learnings, Shawna. And then if we have a chance, maybe you can share what you've learned from this great conversation. So I'm going to start out. All right. So I have 5 with a bonus we like to do here. So brand nerds, the Mickey Drexlers of the world, again, whatever you want to say, positive or negative about Mickey, he was certainly incredibly successful in what he did. They're successful because they are listeners. And Shawna's story, not only about herself, but when he goes to store visits and he's going for the most junior person, that's because he wants to get the real truth. And brand nerds, sometimes it's hard to hear the real truth. But if you really want to understand what's going on with your business, you've got to be listeners and not afraid to hear what maybe not be good news for you. So that's number one. Number two, Shawna said this almost as an aside, but brand nerds, when you're thinking about positioning your brand, you just don't want to be, as she said, in the mushy middle. You've got to figure out how can you be a brand from a positioning standpoint that's appealing to people in a most emotional way. And wherever that is, as it relates to price, you don't want to be in the middle as it relates to price. That's a bad place to be. Number three, like Shawna's mom, Kathy, shout out to her. Be supportive of those around you. It's always best to be supportive, and that goes both with work and family. And you might see some things that bother you, but better to be supportive than to give that constructive criticism. So that's number three. Number four, in any significant project, like what happened with Shawna's biggest F up, you got to get full buy-in from the key overlords, and you've got to do it from the start to the finish. Number five, this one is just so huge. Like Shawna said about being what she was most proud of, brand nerds, when you're navigating your life, don't be scared. You can't be scared. Step up, speak up, and move forward. Those are the things you want to do. And you want to do that from the place of strength and the place of hope, not from fear. And then the last one, brand nerds, like Birkenstock, don't try and be what you are not as a brand. Be who you are and lean in all the way to that. Those are my learnings. And Shawna, these are great learnings from you. Thank you.
Those are outstanding, Larry. Shawna Hausman, thank you for blessing the brand nerds and blessing us at Brands, Beats, and Bytes with your presence here today. You will know if you've listened to any of our podcasts, this is the part of the program where I make a valiant attempt to describe what I am seeing has been painted on this canvas that you have been painting upon for us. And sometimes what happens, Shawna, is at the beginning of the podcast, there's like a speck of paint. And then over the course of the questions and the answers, more paint brushing happens. And then at some point, I'm looking at this metaphorical canvas and I'm going, that's what Shawna is giving us, that if she doesn't give it to us, we're not going to get it in this way from the other 8 billion people on this planet. I'm going to attempt to describe that and what I've seen from you today, what I've learned from you today. When we were in the Get Comfy section, you told arguably one of the greatest answers to a Get Comfy question we've ever had about your internship experience at the Gap Corporation. One of the moments was Mickey Drexler, who you just mentioned, Larry, bounding into a conference room, president, everybody knows this dude is a legend, asking you and the other interns, talk to me. What do you think? And the room goes silent. Amongst my people, Shawna, my black people here in America, we have a saying, when things get really quiet, we say you could hear a rat piss on cotton. Okay, this is what we say. That's very, very quiet. In this quiet, you break it with raising your hand and then speaking your thought. There's a paradox there. There's this quietness in the room, and you kind of sheepishly raising your hand, yet the boldness to say something.
Yep.
Then when we get to the 5 questions and you talked about your first branding experience, you said Old Navy. And specifically, you said you liked Old Navy because your word, not mine, scrappy. Then you mentioned the person who was the brand ambassador. We didn't call them that back then, but we'd call them that now. Carrie Donovan, iconic for her black large frame glasses. And this is a woman known in fashion, Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, New York Times Magazine. So here again, we have this scrappy little Old Navy with this fashion icon, Carrie, together. Once again, there's this paradox. And then the dog Magic. When we ask you the question about who's been the most influential in your career, you talked about your mother, Kathy. And what you mentioned was she was a mom on the one hand, yet she ran your father's medical practice. There's this paradox again, Mom. And back then, different generation, Mom back then. Back then, let me tell you this, brand nerds. Back then, the mom was not expected to be running a practice.
Right.
That was not common.
Well, wasn't asked to either, D. Let's be honest.
You're correct. Not asked to. So we got this paradox of this kind of the background role of mom in terms of business. Yet, and you said she was a businesswoman. Yet, businesswoman. And then we got down to this question on the most five, what are you most proud of? And this is where you went into, don't be afraid. Yeah, I'm not afraid. I'm proud that I'm not afraid. I haven't been afraid to make a move when I need to make a move in my career. I haven't been afraid to go from a job to another job before I have the other job. You even advise the brand nerds, don't stay in a job because you're afraid or because you just doing it for the money. It's not worth it. You talked about this. So here again, you got this paradox of and on the one hand, these are pretty big moves that one could make that are filled with risks. Yet, Shawna is willing to make those moves and have made them. There's this paradox again. And when you finished off your answer to the question of proud of, you said, and when it all comes together, once you get through all of these moves and overcome your fear, when it all comes together, that's the magic. And I'm like, didn't she just say magic a few minutes earlier? The magic that you talked about there is like the magic in the dog from Old Navy. Mm-hmm. Like these things connect.
It all comes back around.
It all comes back around. And then, brand nerds, I'm going to say something here that might not make Shawna comfortable, but I'm going to say it anyway. Before we recorded, one of the first things that Shawna said, brand nerds, she said, I'm really excited about this. I'm also a little nervous. And we talked about it like, hey, Shawna, there's no need to be nervous. It's all good. You're going to do great. So Larry and brand nerds, here she was starting, even before we hit the record button, saying, I'm excited, I'm a little nervous, yet here we are, 90 minutes in, and she's murdered this podcast. Mm-hmm. Paradox. You have this paradox throughout your career, and maybe even your life, which has me conclude that I think what you, Shawna Hausman, are giving us in the world, both through when you say it and more when you do it, is you are the quietly courageous leader. Quietly courageous leader.
How's that feel, Shawna?
Well, I'm honored. I really, no, it means a lot coming from you guys. It really does.
You've done it, not us.
All you.
So, Shawna, before we sign up, anything that you want to share with the brand nerds about this great conversation we've had?
I mean, it's been wonderful. I feel like we could talk for another 2 hours. I really do. Yeah, it's really fun. I mean, I think at this point in my career, you get to this age, I think you've probably had a lot of conversations about this where, a lot of women are evaluating, do I keep grinding, right? Yeah. We're all grinding for years.
Yeah.
Or try something different. And a lot of people I know are kind of dropping out like I did and going into consulting because you can really have more control over who you're working with and what you're working on. And, I felt like at this point, I could take everything I had learned over all these years and apply it in a way that it's hard when you're at a large corporation and here's your like slice of the pie, and you're just doing this. Whereas when you're coming in as a consultant, you can really touch a lot of different aspects. And also you can be, I can be much more honest. because I'm not internal and I'm not part of the political structure, right? I can go in and say, this person isn't working out, or, you may want to restructure this, or that's crap. Don't stop doing it, or whatever, and I think it fits my personality, as you guys could tell. I don't love being in the political system of these larger corporations. I that was not really what had worked for me in terms of my career, what I ended up looking back and loving. So this next move is really something I'm excited about, and it's something a lot of people are doing. And I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of like all these very senior people that I know are moving over into moving out and moving over into consulting. And I'm kind of like, who's going to be doing these CMO jobs now?
Yeah.
Who it's really interesting. We're at a weird moment right now. I'm curious to see how it all goes.
Hey, Larry, did you have any thoughts to what Shawna
Nope.
just said? I do. Shawna, this is the first time, what I'm about to ask you to do, that we have done this in the history of our podcast. And we are nearing, I think, 200 in our catalog. And
Wow.
I've never once, neither has Larry, asked our guests to do what I'm about to ask you to do now. And it's this.
No pressure.
No pressure. No pressure, Shawna. If you could give the brand nerds listening to this, let's just say there's some CEO out there in retail, maybe in some other area, in digital marketing, whatever, and they have gotten to this point in the podcast. They're checking this out. They're listening to you. They're intrigued. And you had the opportunity to say to them, this is why you would want to bring me in as a consultant to help you. What would you say to them?
I think I'm able to really assess a situation very rapidly, and through observation, but also just through talking to people on the ground in these companies. A lot of times things are stuck. And I think when you're at that executive level, it's hard for people to figure out why. And they may think that the problem is one thing, but it's really not. It's a whole different set of things or a different thing. Where I've been successful in consulting, but also, in companies, even when I first go in, I'm able to connect with the people there and really listen and try and understand the business and understand what their point of view is, and then get into their operations, their operating model, and start to piece together what's working, what isn't. But maybe a little bit like Mickey, talking to the younger people on the team who are at times really frustrated with how things are going, and they're more open because they want to convey, like, this could be really great, but this is holding us back, or this person is telling us this, but we think we should be doing that. We don't know what to do. I think that's really my superpower, is coming in and using all of the background I have to be able to come in and listen and observe and get to the heart of it pretty quickly. So it's a little bit of a weird one, because it's not just like, hey, I'm going to come in and run your like performance marketing campaign.
Right.
It's a little bit more of a specialized thing. It's for companies that are in a moment of transition, that know something needs to change, but they may just not know why or how or what's going on, and I think that's where I can come in and act as like an executive partner, to find out, to be the investigator, and to be able to come back and say, and I've had that in the past. When I went to FSA Store, I was originally a consultant, and I went in and spoke to everyone, and I was told there's a marketing problem. And I went in and I talked to everyone for 2 weeks, and I came back and I said, you got 99 problems and marketing ain't one. It's like, you need a new website, you need this, you need that, and it's going to cost you $2 million. Do you want to do it? And they, it's not, often it's PE or some new owners that are trying to figure it out. So I think that's where I add a lot of value, is in change management, but not in the scary sense of the term,
Right.
not like, let me just come in here and fire a whole bunch of people. It's more like, let's really understand, let's get in and understand what's happening so that we can fix it for everyone.
It's a great answer. You've been there and done that, and you're able to easily, because of that, you have the intuitive sense
Mhm.
and operational know-how, and then all of your marketing toolkit to then figure out what needs to happen next. That's amazing.
Hey, Larry, I'm sorry. I know we are needing to close this out. I'd like to just say one thing
Sure.
to Shawna after listening. Larry knows this about me. My mind works in threes. There is a reason behind threes, is why we say ABCs, and why numbers around the world start in threes or series of threes. There is a science behind this, but in this case, I'll just stick with three. I've got three words for you to consider in what you do, Shawna, that would be unique to you, given you are this, I believe, this quietly courageous leader. And it's these three C's: clarity, conviction, and courage. You come in because of your experience, you can clarify, help management and teams see what's going on. You can analyze it quickly. Conviction, you can bring it forward with conviction because you're not impaired by the politics inside.
Mhm.
And courage is you will say the things that need to be said that others may be afraid to say.
I
That's
think I
it.
need to rename the agency
Triple
Triple C
C.
growth.
I was thinking that.
Yeah. I forgot about the triple A's. Okay. Uh, all right, Larry.
I like
Thank you
that.
for
I
allowing
like
me to do
that.
that. Cool.
That's a great way to close. Shawna, thank you so much. You've been awesome. Brand nerds, thanks for listening to Brands, Beats, and Bytes. The executive producers of Brands, Beats, and Bytes are Jeff Shirley, Darryl D.C. Cobbin, Larry Taman, Jade Tate, and Tom Dioro.
High five.
And if you do like this podcast, please subscribe and share. And for those on Apple Podcasts, if you're so inclined, we love those excellent reviews. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we look forward to next time, where we will have more insightful and enlightening talk about marketing.